Hello again. Today I'm here with my September wrap up for my horror and thriller books. And even though I only have one physical book that I read this month, I listened to two audiobooks and I read a bunch of Kindle books because there are a lot of good deals on Kindle, and then I also have Kindle Unlimited. So I've been kind of collecting a bunch of books on my Kindle that I haven't read, and I just kind of decided to start reading them, I guess. And also had some deals for Audible as well. So let me start talking about the two Audible books that I read. The first one I read was Into the Water, which is a thriller by Paula Hawkins. This is a story about a person who people believe committed suicide by jumping off this high area. And of course, a friend of hers who actually kind of was an estranged friend who didn't really talk to her much. After she winds up dying, she can't believe that she actually killed herself. And then that's where the mystery comes in, and we have to figure out what's going on, and you find out all about the people in her life, and you find out about this woman and her friend's childhood, kind of, and how their friendship was. And it wasn't a bad book. I enjoyed it. I would probably give it a good three stars, and that doesn't make it a bad book to me. It's just a book that I thought was just kind of average to me, to be honest with you. But if you like thrillers and you like mysteries, I think Into the Water is a very interesting mystery. It does have a nice kind of twist ending a little bit. A pretty interesting book. Next book I listened to on audio was The Elementals by Michael McDowell. And this is an interesting book because in the beginning of this book, it didn't feel like a horror book. In fact, I felt like I was reading something by Tennessee Williams or something about like just a southern depravity type of family, like a Cat on a Hot Tin Roof or Streetcar Named Desire or something. It felt like you go into this family and they talk about this other house, like the third house. They have like three different houses, and they talk about the third house that, it's kind of spooky, and people just kind of avoid it, and it's been abandoned, and this one character, starts seeing things in this house. The story, before you actually get to the actual horror elements, is all about this family and their emotional issues, and there's one woman's a drunk, and she deals with a politician for a husband. So there's a lot of stuff going on that, again, feels like a very southern classic type of story. But you got this little horror element that's kind of like in the background of the story. But as the story moves on, as it gets deeper and deeper into what's in this house, what's going on with this house, by the end of the story, it is full-blown horror thing that pretty much engulfs the people in this family. And it becomes really good, but it is a slow burn. I feel like it's definitely a slow burn type of book. There's actually a lot of humor, especially in the beginning. It made me laugh out loud. But I did like the southern feel to it. I did like that kind of feel to it. But if you get into the story, no, it's a very slow burn. And once it does start ratcheting up, and once you actually start getting to actually the creepiness and what these elementals are, based on the title, that's when it gets really good as far as like a horror story. But again, it's just a slow burn, but it does become, in my mind, a really good horror story. Before it started to get to the horror elements, I probably would have given it a 3.5 stars. But once it actually got to the horror elements, it really kind of ratcheted it up. So I'll probably add it to a 4-star book. So that is The Elementals. Next book I'm going to talk about is The Summer Job, or Satanic Thriller by Adam Cesare. Now, I've read a couple of Adam Cesare books, and most of them that I've read are kind of average. Again, maybe 3.25 stars or somewhere in that neighborhood. I mean, they're not bad. I like them. They're not anything special. But The Summer Job to me was actually my favorite one I've read from Adam Cesare so far. Maybe because, again, it deals with kids. So sometimes when it's kids in horror, it's always interesting. Definitely has a Children of the Corn kind of vibe to it. A little bit of like kind of the creepy person who kind of, takes control of these kids. It's, obviously from the title you see it's a satanic thriller. So it has devil in it as well. It's just a really good story. I actually really was page turning this book, as far as like on my Kindle anyway. I was really flipping through it, really enjoying this book, and again, it's definitely one of my favorite Adam Caesar books. So I would definitely give it at least a 3.5, probably somewhere between a 3 and a 4. It's not a 4-star read, but it's definitely one of the best. If you like Adam Caesar, I honestly think this is one of his best stories. Next book I read is from R. St. Clair. I read her Unmasked story. She's a booktuber as well, and this was a second book that I picked up from her. And the first book was Black Magic, that I did enjoy. Kind of had a softcore thriller kind of vibe to it that you've watched in, like, say, old 90s or late 80s, early 90s type of films. This Unmasked, though, really reminded me in a way of like a House on Haunted Hill, or maybe even an Agatha Christie kind of story, where all of these people come together in a place and then something happens to these people. The premise of the story is there's this character who is a singer who you definitely get the Madonna vibe from this person when the character is described as a blonde person who dances around and is very suggestive in her music. She had a brother that wrote a scathing biography about her, and she is basically a bitch as far as a character to people. You definitely get that vibe from this character, and the story is about how she's an aging pop star who is looking to rejuvenate herself, become a younger person. So she comes across this new kind of process, new kind of doctor that runs this organization that supposedly works on this fountain of youth. She brings all of these family members to this house before her parents were killed, to this lodge. And she basically offers everybody in the room $1 million if they spend a month going through this process for this fountain of youth kind of religion, cult, however you want to call it. And of course, bad things happen. All of the characters, all the family members see that she looks a lot younger than she used to look. So they wonder what is this fountain of youth thing that has worked for her so well. And of course, the whole dynamics between all the characters was really good. I actually liked Unmasked better than Black Magic. I thought this was a really good story. I actually, I definitely give it a 4-star. This was a very good story. Maybe even higher, maybe even 4.5. I just really liked the way the author had multiple characters in this story and made you really kind of care for all the different characters. Kind of like Black Magic, there is some kind of creepy, sexy time type of stuff. Definitely in the Madonna vein, to be honest with you. It definitely made me feel like this, reading this, the sex scene, and like this would easily be in a Madonna video, except a little bit more graphic. But I was like, okay, I can see that. But again, her antagonist still was a very unique character, even though she definitely borrowed heavily from the Madonna character. That character also still was a unique character and a really interesting character. And like I said, I really enjoyed it. I thought this was a very well done book. If you could pick it up on Kindle, or if you find it somewhere, I definitely would highly recommend picking it up. I think it's a great horror story from a female author, and an independent author at that. So that is Unmasked. Next book I'm going to talk about is Kin by Kealan Patrick Burke. This story reminds me of Brother. If you've seen my review about Ania Alborn's Brother, kind of like a, like a Chainsaw Family type of killing group. This book probably has a little bit more in common with Texas Chainsaw, except throw in a little bit of religion on top of that, as far as like a father who is a religious zealot, and kind of use that as a justification for killing people. Again, and also throw in some collusion. And you get Kin, which is a very dark, violent story about basically this family that kills people. I don't know how else to describe it. It was very well done. Again, I did enjoy it. There were some parts of it that I felt were kind of a little, I don't even know how to describe it. Maybe just kind of a little cliche in a way. But in general, I still really did enjoy this book. I would give it maybe like a 3.5, somewhere in that neighborhood. It's not perfect 4-star read, but a very enjoyable book that especially if you're a fan of that kind of stuff, if you're a fan of slasher, killer, family, and you throw in the religious dynamics, I think you would really enjoy Kin, especially if you were a fan of Texas Chainsaw. I think you would really enjoy Kin as well. And that would be my review of that book. And the last Kindle book that I read was The Nightmare Room by Chris Sorensen. This was a very interesting book. Kind of almost started out in a way kind of like a haunted house story, but becomes something much more. It's very creepy. It's basically about this family that moves to see his father goes into a nursing home. His mother and father are in a nursing home, and he is kind of claiming the house as far as he believes he was going to live in a house. He had some issues. He believed he was going to live in his father's house, but you find out that the house actually has to be sold in order to pay for the nursing home. And you find out that the father actually went kind of crazy, and that's why he's in the nursing home now. But then you find out that there's this other house that the father actually bought recently, and that the son didn't know about, that actually he can live in because it's based in the company. I forget the whole details, but basically him and his wife can actually move into this house, and they want a fresh start because something happened to their child that was tragic, and you find out more about what that is as well, and the details in it. It's not as black and white as it seems when you first hear about it. But again, creepy stuff starts happening while they're in this house, and there's this room again that they call the Nightmare Room, which you see a little glimpse of it in the beginning of the book, where it kind of goes to a flashback of a child in this room and what was going on there. And it just keeps getting creepier. As far as the book gets really, really creepy. And I really did enjoy the book, but there was a problem I had with the ending. The ending for me, I can't go into it because I can't spoil the book. The science fiction in me, the science fiction reader in me, read this and said, okay, there's a problem there. And anybody who read this book will know what I'm talking about. There's a problem in the end of the book. It's still creepy. It's still a great end, and it's actually part 1 of a series. I don't believe the other books are out yet, so it kind of has a cliffhanger ending in a way. There is a problem in the end of the book that would probably make me knock off like a 0.5 star. Otherwise, it would have been a 4-star read perfectly. I really enjoyed it. But because of the way the ending was, and I said, wait a minute, that can't work, that kind of ruined it for me a little bit. I understand, it was a creepy kind of way, the way they would put it, but I was like, no, that don't work. I have to give it 3.5 stars, but up until the ending, and especially the way it's drawn out, and the ending itself actually still was pretty good, I had to knock off like a 0.5 star because of I could not shut off the logical part of my brain saying that causes a problem that hasn't been addressed. Maybe it'll be addressed in a future book, who knows? But all in all, The Nightmare Room is still a very creepy book, and I highly recommend it. And that is the last of my Kindle books that I've read. So now let me get to the one physical book that I actually read this month. Children of the Dark. And this is actually my favorite book I've read this month. This is a amazing, shocked that I didn't know about this author and I didn't know about this book, and I haven't heard about this book because I really enjoyed this book. This book again deals kind of like in the other books that I covered last month. I actually read this in the very beginning of the month, so like Demon King and Disappearance at Devil's Rock and some of the other books, this also deals with children. Even though it says Children of the Dark, That's not actually what the children are. But it deals with children, and it deals with a large cast of characters. It's just so well written, to be honest with you. It reminded, again, I hate to say that every book about children and this undercover thing that they find reminds you of it. But again, yes, it does kind of remind me of it. Let me read the actual description to let you understand a little bit more about the story here. Will Burgess is used to hard knocks, abandoned by his father, son of a drug-addicted mother, and charged with raising his 6-year-old sister. Will has far more to worry about than most high school freshmen. To make matters worse, Mia Samuels, the girl of Will's dreams, is dating the worst enemy, the most sadistic upperclassman at Shayland High. Will's troubles, however, are just beginning, because one of the nation's most notorious criminals, the Moon Knight Killer, has escaped from prison and is headed straight towards Will's hometown. And something else is lurking in the Savage Hollow, the forest surrounding Will's rundown home. Something ancient and infinitely evil. When the worst storm of the decade descends on Shadowland, Will and his friends must confront unfathomable horrors. Everyone Will loves, his mother, his little sister, Mia, and his friends, will be threatened. Again, the way it deals with Will and it deals with all the kids in this is really good. There's a lot of bonding moments, a lot of moments that you feel like, okay, this is high school at this time and dealing with these relationships. And again, it's just a really emotional, especially with him and his sister. And then you find out what the Children of the Night are, and it's a unique kind of creatures, I guess I could tell you. But and then you deal with this killer as well. So you got multiple kind of threats. You got the Children of the Night, plus you got this killer, and you find out how this killer is connected, and how they connect the killer with these creatures. And again, like I said, I'm giving this a 5-star. I cannot rate highly enough of how glad I was that I found this book. So this is the first book I've ever read by Jonathan Janz, and I am definitely going to be reading more. I already have a second book that I picked up when I picked this one up that I'm looking forward to reading, and I may pick up a third one, to be honest with you, because I really did enjoy this book. And that is Children of the Dark. And that is my horror and thriller wrap-up for September. And I just want to say thanks again for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you soon. Bye.